What if a simple push of a button took you to a place where no one ever returns? Daniel thought it was just another elevator ride. He was wrong. What awaited him behind the doors was something that would never let him leave alive. Daniel had heard the whispers, the urban legends, the stories of the old tower where the elevator didn't stop at the right floors. But like anyone else, he dismissed them. He didn't believe in ghosts or curses. Not until tonight. It was well past midnight. The office was empty, the hum of the building the only sound that accompanied his footsteps. He'd just finished his work and was eager to get home. The building, with its aging walls and flickering lights, felt eerily quiet tonight. But there was no reason to be afraid. He approached the elevator, his shoes clacking on the cold tile floor. The doors opened with a slow, drawn-out creak. He stepped inside and pressed the button for the ground floor. But then, his eyes lingered on the cracked panel. There, among the usual buttons, was one he didn't recognize, labeled 13. He stared at it for a moment, confused. No one ever spoke about a 13th floor in this building. It was the sort of superstition people joked about. But now, seeing it there, something felt wrong, but curiosity got the better of him. He pressed the button. The lights inside the elevator flickered violently, and the air grew heavy. A low, grinding noise began, like the elevator was being pulled down by some unseen force. The lights went out completely, and Daniel's breath caught in his throat. The elevator dropped faster than it should have, plummeting as if it had no brakes. His chest tightened with panic. He slammed his finger against the ground floor button, but it was useless. The elevator wasn't listening. It stopped. The doors groaned open, and Daniel stepped into the unknown. The hallway was dark, impossibly dark. There was no sound, no movement, just a chilling stillness that made his skin crawl. The air felt cold, too cold. A bitter draft pushed past him, and his breath came out in short, white puffs. His feet were heavy as he walked, as if the very ground was trying to pull him down. Then he noticed it. At the far end of the hall, faintly glowing, was a light. A single, flickering bulb that seemed to be alive, buzzing in an irregular rhythm. Suddenly, a noise. A shuffle. It was coming from behind him. Daniel spun around, but no one was there. His heart hammered in his chest as he took a step back, only to hear another sound. This time, it was a soft whisper, too faint to understand, but unmistakably there. "Leave, now." His heart skipped a beat. He turned to run back to the elevator, but when he reached the spot where it had been, the elevator was gone. In its place was only a solid wall of crumbling, dirty bricks. Panic shot through him like electricity. His breath quickened as the walls seemed to close in. Every direction led him into more darkness. Sound of his own heartbeat drowned out everything else, until another whisper. "Don't leave now." A large antique mirror suddenly appeared on the wall beside him, framed in old tarnished gold. He didn't want to look, but he couldn't help himself. As his reflection stared back at him, it felt wrong. His eyes were empty, like two black holes staring out at him, draining all warmth from his soul. His mouth twisted into a slow, unnatural grin. He turned away, his stomach churning. But then he heard something that made his blood run cold. A voice, not his own. "Come closer," He spun around to face the voice, but there was nothing. No figure. Just darkness. Then the lights flickered, and for just a moment, he saw it. There, standing just beyond the light, a figure. It was too tall, unnaturally tall, and its shape was indistinct, like it was made from shadows themselves. It wore a tattered suit, but its face was blank, empty, hollow. "Why did you come here?" it whispered, its voice harsh and wet, like something had crawled out of the depths of a grave. Before Daniel could move, the figure's hands shot out, impossibly fast, grabbing him by the wrist. The cold, clammy fingers burned into his skin, dragging him forward. "No, let go!" He screamed, but his voice sounded weak, distant, like it wasn't even his own. The figure dragged him down the hallway, which seemed to stretch on forever, the shadows closing in tighter, twisting around him, suffocating him. He tried to scream again, but his voice was lost in the overwhelming silence. The figure pulled him into a room, dark, empty, except for more mirrors, each one showing a different twisted version of him. Some had hollow eyes, others were smiling grotesquely, their lips stretching too wide, too far. Then, as if his fear wasn't enough, the whispers started again, louder this time, filling the room, coming from all directions. "You shouldn't have come," they said, their voices overlapping, creating a chorus of terror. His legs gave out beneath him, and he collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. The room began to spin, the walls twisting around him, closing in like a giant mouth, ready to swallow him whole. "Welcome to the 13th floor," the figure said, its voice cold as death. Suddenly, everything stopped. The room was silent. The lights went out. The mirror in front of him shattered. And then, the silence was broken by one final whisper, chilling in its finality. "Now you'll never leave." The next day, when the building manager arrived to check the elevator, he found it exactly where it should be. There was no sign of Daniel, no sign that he'd ever existed. But sometimes, late at night, when the elevator doors open, you can hear a faint whisper. "Help me, help me." If you ever find yourself in a building with an elevator that seems off, remember Daniel's story. Don't press the 13th floor button, because sometimes the things that wait for you are far worse than death itself. If this story gave you chills, like the video, subscribe for more horror, and tell me in the comments, would you take the risk